Okay, so we do have a very special person sitting right at the front. Her name is Phoebe Kingston, and she's going to talk about such a new revolutionary program that's available, the recovery colleges. So I'm going to hand it over to Phoebe, who will introduce herself and also her program. Thanks.
Oh, it's not my program. I wish it was all mine. I'm Phoebe. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for coming to have a bit of an info session and a bit of Q&A. Maybe we might get a chance at the end to just sort of chat about all the stuff that I'm going to present. So this morning is about recovery colleges. You probably have heard some stuff here or there, but there hasn't really been any specific info sessions, little intimate gatherings like this where in an informal style. So because everything's kind of been churning away and been a little bit, I think a few of the sort of rollout plans have obviously been affected by coronavirus and stuff. So it's fantastic for me to be invited here by May, because I work with May in another space, and she's kindly said, well, hey, why don't you come and talk about it, because I gave a quick 10-minute presentation for our council.
My mind is, but what is going on, Phoebe?
Yeah, so here I am. So it's all kind of, sort of a bit casual and impromptu, but I'm really excited. So recovery colleges, this is my group that I'm in the middle of launching. It's called Through the Rabbit Hole, but that is not affiliated or has anything to do with recovery colleges as a government thing. So we're going to go through and talk about how this came about. So this is me. I'm going to be talking about recovery colleges this morning, and that's just a bit of a bio. I didn't always used to have these slides in, but it was suggested to me that people should know roughly who I am. But not here to talk about me, because I'm not half as interesting as recovery colleges and all the projects that I work on. And we're probably going to forward May either the PowerPoint or the lovely Adobe Spark presentation that I planned for you to have in hard copy booklet today. That didn't print, did it, May? It didn't format, it just gave me a logo and a blank page. So anything that I say, you'll have a copy of. So off we go. So I actually don't normally present on this subject, because I'm normally doing other things, and the one that I gave for the council, which you saw maybe was just sort of a 10-minute or so. What I've done is I've fleshed it out into a longer presentation, and some of the information is a bit statistical, it's background, some of it's just there for context. So I'm going to keep my eye on time, because I have about all up only about 40-45 minutes, and we might want to chat at the end.
11.
And to be completely transparent, I would normally rehearse to time to make sure I'm exactly to time, but I've had surgery and it's mental health week and got all these excuses. So I wrote this and went, wow, I hope that's not a 2-hour presentation. So if you just keep seeing me going like this, I'm just going to make sure that you get all the bits that you probably are more juicy and relevant and the stuff you might want to talk about. So let's get into it. So recovery colleges are they've been operating in other areas of the world and other countries really, really successfully. There's a lot of great literature and stats and research about them. We do have some in Australia, but they're all over in the eastern states. So as we know, being in WA, wait a while, we are a bit behind with some things, and in fact, even Australia as a whole, even our eastern states, are still behind some of the things that go on in other international models and approaches. But the great thing about being a little bit behind and being in WA is that when we decide to do something, we can look at what's worked and what's not worked elsewhere and go, aha, now that it's our time, we might do it better. So our advantages of being a little bit behind is that we can do stuff that's bespoke, that we can look at all the successes and failures, and we tend to do some pretty good stuff in WA. So although I often might be seen as a bit bashing of our system, I'm also very ambitious and also very proud of WA, and I think that Australia as a whole can have a world-class mental health system. So if you've heard about recovery colleges, these are probably the things that are very important to note first. So, I might be slightly in the way. So they're educational institutions, they're colleges. These are not health service providers, they're not HSPs, so you don't go there and have psych assessments, therapy sessions. They are not a mental health service. So although they contribute massively to our provision of good mental health and well-being, and I'll give you a bit of information about how recovery colleges do that and help the system in general. Yes, I've probably already made it clear that they're independent. They've been very successful, and there's lots of literature, and I'll give you some of those points as we go along. Why are we getting one? First question some people say is, what is this? How did it come about? Why are we getting one? Well, we don't currently have any, and they've been great elsewhere. So the very simple answer is we need one. It's been called for actually a long time. So a lot of people, and some of the giants of the lived experience workforce and sectors have been advocating for this a long time. So this didn't just start happening in 2018. This has been going for years. And look, that's the sort of the technical bit, that they're actually highly consistent with all our policy directions. They align with everything that we've written into a lot of our major national state plans. Okay, so the idea of recovery college system just marries really well to what we're already saying was trying to achieve through policy directions. And it was a Labour government election promise, so they promised this, so they've had to deliver. So you probably all heard, as being in the carer sector and support and family person sector of people with mental emotional distress, of the plan. We just call it the plan, don't we? Do you guys just call it the plan? Where I work, we just call it the plan. So the 10-year Western Australia Alcohol and Other Drug Services Plan 2015 to 2025. It's had a few revamps and reviews along the way. And everything sort of within that, like I say, aligns and marries to the idea of recovery college system. And these are just a few dot points here. I'm not going to do this reading PowerPoint sheet the whole way, because you get copies. But this is why we're getting it, basically for our policy direction. And the need has been established, and that comes through the literature, data, research in other international recovery college models. Make sure I'm not missing anything there that I might want to touch on a little more. Yeah, well, that's just a lot of technical blurb for you, which I'm not want to bore you with really dry stuff. So these first few slides are really just about giving you a bit of context, because I think it's really important when you come to an info session to have a bit of context behind what is happening and why it's happening. So the Mental Health Commission had to start working on a business case, because obviously to do this and make it a free funding, government service, you need money, right? So you have to make sure that if you're going to promise something and deliver it, there has to be a proper business case, there has to be funds allocated, and all this work was going on before the expert panel convened. So this was a lot of preparatory work before 2018 when I came on to the project. And business cases, I find business cases and all this stuff really dry, but I had to get into it on the panel. But they have to outline all of these things. And this is actually really quite important, because this isn't a duplication of services. People go, oh, this is another health service provider. Oh, it's just another college. Oh, we've got a wellbeing centre in here and there. And it is actually quite different. It is quite radical. I'll get so passionate, so I'm going to tell you about all these wonderful things it does. So the business case, when you're talking to politicians and government, they just want to know, how much do I need to invest? How worth it is it? And how many dollars will it save our health system? So when you write a business case for this stuff, you really have to be telling them, actually, it's this amount of dollars you're not going to spend in acute care, this amount of dollars that you're going to save in beds. So I'm going to skip on, because that does get dry. But it was a really important background work that was always going on behind the scenes as the panel was working. And the last bit of context here is that, like I said, even before 2018, there were several people in WA, incredible people, some of which I know and work with, and some of my peer colleagues and people who are now my friends. They have really pushed and advocated this idea. So there was a group of people that held an information session at Curtin University back in 2014. I've got it on a slide in a minute. And so this actually began quite a while ago. And a lot of this stuff in the sector bubbles along under the scenes that we just don't know about. So even some of this was new to me in 2016, 2017, when I was studying at Curtin under one of these ladies who was teaching me a lot of things. I was like, oh, I'm really into that. So that's how I started learning about it. And that's how I ended up on the expert panel. So when I did a lot of study on it and became very, very passionate about it. So that's a little bit of context that this has actually been planned and prepared and talked about for a long time. So the Mental Health Commission, due to its election and promise and all of this work that has gone before, convened an expert panel. So when an expert panel is convened, there's quite a process of screening and selecting individuals that really do have specific expertise, but also making sure it's a diverse panel. So you don't want everyone coming with the same view, the same background, the same privileges and things. So I think that was done quite carefully. There were 10 of us on the panel. I was one, and there were wonderful people on the panel. I've put subject matter experts there, and I always do this in quotation marks, and in fact, the running joke on the panel was that because this is quite new in WA, none of us felt like we'd obviously been chosen because we had more knowledge than most, but we rejected the term sort of subject matter experts because we found that at the time we were as confused as anyone else in the Mental Health Commission, and it was just an amazing process. And I always find, and I think a lot of us share the sentiment, that when you come into some of these expert panels, you learn as much and take away as much as you put in. So we're there contributing all the stuff that we do know that's not common knowledge and all the experience, and we're still learning from each other. And this panel went on for nearly a year. I mean, it was just a massive process. And so that's what happened. We had an expert panel. We started in early 2018. We worked most of that year until the October. 11 meetings, all 3 hours each, and a lot of out-of-session work. So the job of the panel was quite confined, was quite demarcated, because our main responsibility was to draft the model of service, the MOS, and we weren't to get too involved in sort of tenure things. Yes, so we had to really use all our time to specifically draft the document that is going to be the WA model. And that's really difficult because we were aware of all the other international literature, and when we came in, we actually had to read things. It's been a few years since I read it, read newer literature and kind of assimilate that. But you see, the thing is, when you look at models elsewhere in the world, in different countries, different contexts, you can't always just pick up that model and plonk it in WA and go, that'll work. We'll just copy their model. You just copy and paste, like that'll work in WA. Which is another reason why the open dialogue service system in Finland that we're now pushing for the MSc to get in WA, that model wouldn't work either, because we're a massive state. We're like our country is not just an island country and a continent, it's massive. And WA is nearly half of that. I mean, you could fit Europe, you can fit Europe 5 times into WA. So our geographical spread, our linguistic spread, cultural spread. We've got rural, regional, remote areas. We've got so many different, very multicultural. So it was quite difficult to pull apart certain bits and be able to make that bespoke. Like, this has to work where we are. Yes, this one might work in Japan, but that's not going to work here. So it was a very, very interesting process. These were our main concerns. So I'm going to talk to you about fidelity criteria in a minute, because we're going to get to all the juicy bits. Part 2 is the juicy bits. We were very concerned about adherence to what is called the fidelity criteria. So whoever was going to come in and be awarded tenure was going to really have to prove that they are going to stick to this fidelity. Otherwise, it's not a true recovery college. And if you do something that's a bit recovery college and a bit like them, the whole thing gets lost and it gets co-opted and misunderstood. And people, oh, it's just another duplication of this. And so we were, that was a major concern, that it has to be true to fidelity, because they are different to everything that we have already. I was always saying, if we're going to do this, we need to do it properly. You can't just plonk, a hub in Perth City, have one in one room, one in Rockingham, and go, oh, we've got recovery colleges, because it doesn't meet fidelity. So I'm going to explain to you what fidelity is in a minute. It has to be part of a robust system. So we made certain advice and requests. As I've said, you can't just have a few locations and go, oh, we've got recovery colleges, because it doesn't work like that. And we advise on our number one preferred costing option was idyllic, was everything that we wanted. We wanted all the money, we wanted all the locations. We asked for the biggest best as version, and we deliberated a lot that yes, we might not get this might not be the option that's going to be funded for a business case, but we decided to hold, being very passionate, we decided to hold true as like, this is the option that the panel's advising you, and you've convened us for a reason, so you need, and we just didn't list up, we just said this is what we want, so we were very, very tenacious about that. So this all went through very well, and we were given the exact option that we advised for. So we got all of the money, we got all of the locations, and we got all of the rollout, and they just said, it's been a great project, we're very excited to work, and you got it. Now that really happens, guys, you know, when you go to the MHC and you're working on panels and business cases, and you say, oh, we want a few million and we want it done in 20 months. Like, you don't normally get what you ask for. So we really put our guts in glory to say that we weren't very satisfied with other options. And so that was, this one perhaps is so exciting. So we have 3.6 million in, and that's just for rollouts, that's further fund, that's just to get things happening, yeah? Covering all of the locations that we asked for, okay? So it's not just a couple of things here or there. You have got 10 hubs, and they're just hubs, so they will also have satellite locations. So this is massive, this is statewide spread. North Metro, South Metro, East Metro, South West, Great Southern, Wheatbelt, Goldfields, Midwest, the Pilbara and the Kimberley. It's always a massive achievement to get MHC to go. You have to have a system in every single area. So massively exciting. You can tell I'm very excited. All right, juicy bits. Where are we for time? Okay, so 11:30, I'm finishing up.
Let's do good.
Yeah, right, okay, let's get started. So, fidelity criteria, which basically means the rules. They're just the rules. It's a very funky term, fidelity criteria, but I quite like it because fidelity is, it's quite beautiful, but some people go, why don't you just call it the rules? Fidelity criteria, okay. Colleges have to be, I hope I'm still in shot. Am I still in shot? Yeah. Have to be educational. They're a college, right? And so it's an educational institution, okay? So it's not, there's not therapy, it's a college. Oh no, I lost it. Just when I got to the juicy bit.
No.
Make sure the clock's counting down.
Yep, it is.
Right. Okay. I do. I feel really shut down by that. Just as we got to the juicy
Sorry.
bit. I'm never going to come here again. Alright. So educational and collaborative. So they have to be co-produced, co-designed, co-evaluated. A new progressive term in some sectors of the work is co-reflection processes. So it's, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about co-production in a minute. You're probably aware because everyone's done a bit of looking into that. Strengths-based. Okay, so what we often find when we go into mental health services is there is quite a deficits-based, there's a lot of focus on what hasn't worked and how unwell you are, and it's very putting people in boxes and very prescriptive, and you've got this diagnosis, so you do DBT and you get 10 sessions of this, and and then you just get reminded about how you've relapsed all these times. It's just, I'm just going to stop because I just rant off about stuff I don't like. So this is going to be a really different environment. Person-centred, which is a service speak, but we mean person-centred in the term of being educated, like everyone coming together, and co-learning, co-sharing, and co-journeying. It's progressive, and they have to be progressive. So these institutions have to be very forward-thinking in their language, in their fidelity to co-production, to their diversity, and to new ideas. And it is often said that recovery colleges, if they're effective and they're running the way they should really combat stigma and very, very conventional views and open up just all sorts of things. So they not only progressive, but they are an area or a change agency. So a lot of other places that have run recovery colleges, there's been community change, not just culturally in their mindset, but things have been opened up because people are coming together and doing stuff together that doesn't have to be specifically for people with mental health distress. So it's a very, very inclusive space. And community facing, this term, these are all from original recovery college fidelity criteria. So when they say community facing, well, what we mean is, has to be accessible, has to be relevant to that community in that area, has to be inclusive of everyone in that area, designed that way. So when you face your community, what it essentially means is that one of the recovery colleges up in, let's pick a region, in the Kimberley, will look a certain way, will be something, run certain courses, have a community feel, have an ethos, and then if you go down and go to one in Rockingham, it might look completely different. It will still be a recovery college and it will still be running by fidelity criteria and creating all the great positive change, but that community might have said, oh, we don't want to call it that, we want to call it this. I don't want to call it recovery colleges, and in fact recovery colleges was a term that the panel hated because there is a contest about the word recovery, because a lot of people like me that teach more of the academic activist side don't believe that mental illness is evidenced enough anywhere in science and medicine, that no one's been able to prove to me that I'm sick. There's no medical testing available, there's no, so there's the whole field of activism and not just people on the ground, but actual academics who are psychiatrists, who are psychologists, who are now becoming a lot braver in the last few decades and coming out and saying there's no evidence that you have an illness. Like, it's mental illness is not a proven thing, so it's just like sort of, so the word recovery for some of us is just really off-putting. But the recovery college model of service expert panel and the way that we refer to it in WA and all the documents and the Q&A sheets are all called recovery college, because that's not what it's called, that's what the model is called. So what you're getting is a recovery college system model. What the actual places will be called and all the locations could be like, the Rainbow Centre for Emotional Wellbeing down here, and up in the Pilbara somewhere it could be the Holistic Health Centre for people like me. The community will just come in and just name it. They have the right to name. So if this is running to criteria and we've done a good job of who we've given tender to and things, the community will turn up and be consulted about what they want to call it, because it belongs to them. This is not an HSP. It belongs to the community, and it has to be community facing, and that means ownership. So everyone will come in and decide, I want it to be this, and they're like, well, then that's what you've got. So that is what fidelity criteria are about. So it's very important. This runs very different to our government services. It is for us, for you, for everyone, and inclusive, because it just doesn't make sense to do all that and not be inclusive. And you'll know inclusive is, so I don't need to sit here and prattle on condescendingly about what inclusion means. So this has to be for everyone. And these are the principles of co-production, and this is actually the principles that the expert panel worked on as well. Because the expert panel wasn't all just people of lived experience. There was a psychiatrist, there were a couple of health service providers. One of our members does have direct experience in a recovery college, because there is a small centre in Broome. It's already been there for a few years. That actually is a recovery college, but it sort of runs on that ethos, but it's been quite isolated because we never had all the election promises and money. So that place in Broom's been running for a while, doing its best with all that fidelity criteria and really running great courses, offering really great educational experience for people. It's community facing, but it never, this needs to be across WA. And so naturally she was invited to the expert panel to say, give us everything you know from the bit that you've done, from this one in Broome. And so everyone who came had maybe a different context, a different expertise, different background. There was a couple of clinical voices, there was AOD voices, there was a carer's voice, me, and consultants. So we ran the panel in a co-produced way. And these are the principles, these are very, very famous principles of co-design. If all this isn't happening, then you are not in a co-design or co-production process. And it's really funny when I hear from people, oh, when did co-design? And I went and they had all the agenda and we had this much to spend and we did this and we tweaked that. And I went, that's not co-design. If you didn't set the agenda and how much money you needed and how many meetings, and you went there from the beginning and then you also went there at the end when they evaluated it, you were just consulted. Like, don't accept that stuff as co-production stuff, not co-production. And this is one of my own quotes, because I write and teach some of this stuff too. I won't read that now, but that's you get that in the PowerPoint. There's been a lot of papers. Some of them aren't open access. They're just not. They just don't go through public domain, and some do. And a lot of them you just got to have access to them through university libraries or by being a student or teaching there. So I just quote and bullet point important things, but there's loads of papers and some are open access, so you might be able to get some. And these are all the things that people have reported to feel once they're moving through these recovery college processes. I'm going to read it because it's just, I feel like I'm doing a lot of reading of PowerPoint because this isn't my usual presentation. So lots of benefits. And interestingly, in some of the places where they have been run, and I guess this is where I need to tell you a little bit more about how these courses actually work, because I'm starting to think, like, oh yes, I need to actually give you the... So when you come to enrol in a recovery college, you meet up and you have a bit of an assessment about what life skills you want or what's a challenge. Someone might come in and say, I kind of do okay, I'd like to do more looking into depression, anxiety, but I also have a real problem with budgeting. My tax returns, budgeting because I'm on a pension and I have to, get by. Someone else might come and say, I just really want to tap more into my spiritual side because that doesn't get as much. It just gets a bit of lip service sometimes where we go in the health services because we're not very holistic. So the types of courses will be pretty diverse. So when you come up, you have a bit of a chin wag about what is it that you want, and there'll be quite a bit of time spent with you, maybe this, try this, and they'll work out a plan, and you sort of create what you want. So it's very... you've got ownership, so that's why I guess it's different to a health service, because you come in and say, oh, I want to improve this, or no, that's not my problem, don't want that, and you're just enrolling what you want. And there are peer supporters. The expert panel was really keen that peer support people will be available to come and buddy people through, how you doing, you okay. Now, obviously, with some people with lived experience being in the recovery college environment, they might come across, life challenges and struggles while they're studying, and I guess it's not a therapy session or a health service where then you're treated, but obviously, as with any educational institution and any service, there's a duty of care. So if you look like you're struggling, and you were doing well when you first started the course, you're really struggling, people are going to check in with you, like, okay, do you need to go? Do you need extra support? Are you okay studying? Do you want a break? And there are peers there to help you through that. And that's why it has to be a very inclusive and very understanding and sharing space, because a lot of people coming to recovery colleges aren't carers, family members, or support people with people with mental health. They aren't people who are diagnosed, and they aren't people that have had any challenge. And there are also clinicians coming to study there with you. So this is not for people of lived experience or stress. It's not for diagnosed people. This is a college that benefits anyone in any life domain that they choose they wanted to come and hone in on and go on a journey with. Okay, so when people say, oh, recovery college is another thing for mental health, it's like, it's not. It's great for mental health, and that's the idea, is that we would all be turning up and learning massively. But this is for people who, community members might have an interest in how do I sleep better? I'm just really struggling, I just don't sleep well. Or I have a child who doesn't sleep well, can I come with my husband and learn how do we get really good sleep routines? There might be someone coming who's never had any mental health issues who wants to do a course in spirituality and how to live well and hone in. There might be courses on discover your personal values and how to never compromise them and live by them, or discover your empowerment. So you don't have to be someone who's been through a mental health journey, a service user, a carer, to come to the college. And you might get priests rocking up who just go, oh, I just hear, people are stressed. Because a lot of people go to their priests, right? So their religion is a big part of their health. And you might get a priest or a pastor come who just wants to do a course, just wants to have more awareness, more of an idea, and go on a journey. Clinicians will, now this might take longer because we know some clinicians, this is probably the aim, and it might take longer because of stigma, but this is exactly what's good about it. So clinicians are welcome to come and be in that co-sharing, co-learning space, and they will be accredited to what's called CPD points. In fact, I think that might be the American term. I think obviously we use I'm going to just use
No, that's
PD,
right.
so
TD,
professional,
professional
continued professional development points. So actually, you might be getting people who've already been in practice 20 years who go, wow, I'm always in the environment where I'm treating someone, it might be nice to just come and not be someone's OT, but sit in the room and, so this offers something that we just don't have. We don't have this experience anywhere, we don't have this opportunity to come together and do that. And there might be some uni students who are in their third year of social work or doing their master's OT that want to come and go, wow, before I venture out there or before I finish my degree, I'll just come to Recovery College and see, what are people thinking? What is my community thinking? What are the people that I might be supporting and their support persons and my neighbours, and what do people think? So it's a really co space. And it can never... You can never have a course that is taught by one person. So you're not going to go and have a clinician teach you things. It's co-learning, it's not teaching. Okay. So you will have a clinician, and then you will also have a person with the specific expertise in that area. Usually that's a person with lived experience, but if you're going to a budgeting course, you might just get a local accountant coming to share tips and tricks, and then a person with and a clinician. So if you front up to a recovery college and there's one person teaching you, you need to make that known, because that's not a recovery college. Okay, it has to be co-delivered, and that course has to be co-designed by carers, people with experience and specific experience and clinicians before it even opens up and for people to enrol in it. So there's at no point where one person goes, I'm going to teach this, you all ought to learn this, and it's just, this is fidelity, you guys, is why it's really, really important. This is why it's so different to going to other therapy or CBT or DBT, is that you've always got someone who's actually lived that specific area of distress and who wants just to add that perspective and co-facilitate that space, and then a clinician or the accountant if it's a budgeting course, or you might have a spiritual healer, a Reiki master might come in with an OT and do a course on things that are related to that. Okay, so there should never be one person standing there doing a course, and that's probably the co-production is probably one of the most important pieces the delegate can do. I'm conscious of time because I've got so much I wanted to tell you. So it's pretty different, and it does elicit a lot of community change. And before I went on that pre-ramble, the point I wanted to make was that it's been shown in some other places when clinicians have gone to recovery colleges in their time to be involved in that space and to learn that they then have a much better mental well-being in their work. They're a lot more refreshed, there's less absenteeism, they have a more positive culture in work. So when there's a particular department where those staff are really encouraged to go to recovery colleges a couple of times a year, those areas of work and those teams generally have a much more positive culture and less, because the sad thing is sometimes a lot of stigma actually comes from clinicians and services, because it's just an ingrained thing, because they feel like they're the expert, and it can be a bit, I'm not going to go off on a political rant. So it's really nice in places that have encouraged all the team members, you need to go and get CPD points, off you go to recovery college for a week, and tell us all about it and give out. Those people tend to show up to work, take less time off, they're happier, and really good culture. So there's all this great stuff that happens, not just for us, carers, community, but for clinicians who experience that space, because they know what works and what they're to treat, they just get to come and sit and go. You can imagine how you just spark off into it when you're in a very different environment as a clinician, and you're not allowed to be a clinician, you're not allowed a name badge, you can't walk into recovery college. I would be hoping that this will evolve, because we talked about this in the panel, is that we wouldn't want a class of people and half of them sitting there with their ID on because they're doing CPD, because that's not really the atmosphere and the co-equal power-sharing journey that we want to go on, because nobody knows more than anybody else. People just know things in a different way. It's what we call a typically great, helpful experience from recovery college. People that have had this great experience from recovery colleges who are not using crisis beds, that's over $20,000 that our mental health services are not spending. And the recovery college does not cost anywhere near that much. Like, we're offering these courses for free, and this funding is forever, and I can tell it doesn't cost that. So 20 grand a person. Now this is statewide, so we've got 10 hubs, we probably might end up with 20, 30 satellites. If you have 30 people working up in every region, eventually when word spreads in 10 years, I'm not good at numbers, but I can extrapolate that would save WA a lot of money, which means that we get more investment in stuff we want, and then maybe we could put that money into health promotions. This is where I'm going to try and push because I'm pushing another system through MSc at the moment, which I'm involved in a different group. That's not for today. Yeah, so there's a little discussion we had on this in the panel, is that what we envision, and I guess what we didn't want to happen, we hope that if people come to Recovery College who do have lived experience and have been service users and have that lived experience of distress, that they wouldn't sort of languish there. I don't mean that to sound, but you don't want to come in and then just do course after course and not go out and take that into your community and live it in your life and just come and just study all the time, because then you're not out there living it and breathing it. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know how to articulate what I mean. Yeah, so we wanted people to go out and take it out into the community, and a lot of research, so for everywhere else, has shown that anyone who has gone through their Recovery College courses, when they do evaluations and follow-up, everyone is either then doing any further studying, so they might then end up at university because they've become interested in health promotion or OT or social work or psychology or being a nurse. They're either studying, doing further studying, they're either in paid work, volunteered work, or are really engaged with the community, and those have been really high percentage rates. So it's very, very unusual for someone to go through a recovery college and then still end up in the same kind of acuity sense in services and not like this really does and will transform our system. That's not going to happen in 12 months, it's not going to take a few, but it will have some immediate effects for the people on the ground that come, and I would expect, due to projections that I've looked at, that within 10 years you'll see quite different grassroots activity and feeling and culture, and that is the dream, and that's why we ask for that amount of money, and that's why we ask for that amount of hubs and satellite locations, because if you're going to do it, you don't just have a few little colleges, you actually got to make it your state, your lifestyle, and your offering for people. And that's pretty much it, because, look, that was the end of my thing. Watch out, it's coming. Officially, there's the official references. So, does anyone have any?
Is this Richmond Wellbeing had a?
Oh yes, I forgot to tell you tonight. Yes, so so when the tender went out, we had another expert panel, which I was lucky to go and work on the second panel, so I did another few months of work on this, and we did have people who've lived experience, one, me and a carer, along with MHE staff, to evaluate the tender, because it was really important to the expert panel. So the tender was awarded to a consortium, which is actually great, because we've only got more voices and it fits with the thing. So Helping Minds would be one of the leading partners, members of the consortium, and Recovery College WA, which is the name of the group that was run by Lynn and some people I know that were doing information sets and curtain and advocacy work on this 10 years ago. So it is great that Recovery College WA, that group that's been advocating it for so long, have joined with Helping Minds, got a consortium, got a massive array of people with all these interests, and they're all going to do it together, which actually itself fits the code. You couldn't have it better. When you look at 20 organisations, you're going to be like, this is going to be such cross-pollination. So, it's exciting. I'm not completely sure what's happening, and to be completely honest, don't ask me for a date of what date is the one happening in Kimberley. It's all going to happen, but I think the whole world's just been delayed with coronavirus, and everything's been sucked into my mental health and the health service, as it should be, because it's for wellbeing. So it's all still happening, it's just everything's probably just back 6 months. The money's still there, the plans are still there, which is great actually, because some of the consortium are probably just beavering away, going, we've got more time to plan. They're probably writing their admin, looking at hiring admin people, and because some of them are going to use locations that they already have, and some will actually have to lease and get a new location. But the location, the physical location it's in, also has to meet fidelity criteria. So, which is similar to government health services, like got to be near a train line, a bus station, amenities, and things like that. But even internally in the panel, we were like, you can't offer something where you don't have a room for people to have lunch and you just have a cafe because some people can't afford to come in and buy sandwiches. I've been on a pension, I had $6 left every month. I haven't bought a magazine for 7 years because I didn't have $10 to buy Cosmo. I mean, there's just people that isn't enough of their guts and energy and the finances to get themselves there on a train, on a season ticket, or a smart line, and then you don't have somewhere for them to sit because they need to bring their own sandwiches and they can't afford. You know, it's okay if you've got clinicians coming and the staff can come in and go to the cafe next door and buy a $12 focaccia or something like that. And a lot of us don't live like, you know, I just still, now because I'm launching a business and quit my job and I've made money and I'm right back there, but at least I'm in love with life, it's great. But yeah, so even the locations have to fit fidelity, you know, you just have to be inclusive. And only having a nice swanky restaurant and cafe next door for people to buy lunch is not inclusive because a lot of us don't live like that, do we? Don't. Some of your carers say you're living on carers, you just, that's not going to be good to you, is it? To go to recovery college and there isn't a nice space for you to sit and eat your own lunch and make coffee. So you've got to have all this stuff provided for you because that's important.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, I'll stop talking. I just get so excited.
Because I mean, I'm very cynical about the whole thing, you know, like a lot of things like this, because there's so much government money has been thrown at mental health and nothing is really happening because you said that WA is the last to start this. How is the uptake in the eastern states?
They've got, okay, so they have some in Queensland. I can't remember what the one in New South Wales is called. If you Google later, so a good example, there's two best examples of recovery colleges if you want to go and look like, is this going to work? So there's Mind. Now Mind have some involvement, they're very aligned with recovery colleges and have helped do that. Now, one of the older and very, very well established ones is in the UK, and it's by the Scottish Recovery Network.
But so what has been the results?
Look, I wouldn't be able to give you statistics for the eastern states off the top of my head, but I would suggest they'll probably be in line with all the research all over the world. I think my answer to your question is data and research all over the world shows the same thing. And from what I can remember, there's been nothing different shown in eastern states. So they all have very, very good evaluation success rates. They all have a lot of, they all fit fidelity criteria. Most of the statistics, I would say, I think from memory, about 78% is normally one of the lowest numbers for things like sense of empowerment, sense of identity. They're all over those 75%. There's a few that drop to 60, like have you managed to keep work for the entire 6 years since you've been in you know, some of those are a bit lower, come down 50-60%. But the really important things like, do you feel more empowered? Have you learnt more? Did you enjoy the experience? Are you using this in your daily life? Are you functioning? I don't know the word functioning. Are you functioning at a better level? Are you involved in your community? All of those are quite high percentages, and the eastern states have shown exactly the same. I mean, these are all over America. They've got tons of it. They're so into recovery college. There is actually one in Japan. Scottish Recovery Networks had.
No. Sorry, when I said cynical, I didn't. I hope I'm cynical, but I'm also optimistic at the same time. I'm hoping that it succeeds, because the biggest thing with these, you know, and it's, I would say with mental health is that not only somebody comes but completes the course. The main thing is that completing of the completing of it, because the dropout rate is so. And you know, we've seen all the education, the money that the government has spent so much, but people just enroll on one. They're there for a week, 2 weeks, and then they're gone, and nobody even chases them up. Or
see, this is why it's different
on the quality of the course.
No. What I'm saying is the whole program, that it's got to be, I don't know. Wait, I'm just
But this is why when you come, you just fill out a form and sign a course and sign up. Because really you want to be actually having an hour or half-hour conversation with like, is this your most challenge area? Are you ready right now? Have you got the time commitment? Can you afford to get here?
Exactly.
And do you want to bring someone with you? Do you want to plan? Do you want to start one next fortnight? Do you want to start one in 3 months when you're not moving house or when you've not just bought a puppy? Or, you know, and it's so you ought to be having, and then having a peer worker coming in while you're studying, going, can I help? Are you stressed? I've done this kind of thing before, let's do that. So it's not like a program like we've had before. This is what I really shared. Yeah, sorry, let's get to it. Who was first?
Can I ask about when you're doing co-production, co-design of the course? Is this all done voluntarily by the people who are going to present the course, or is there some way of paying people for their time?
Yeah, so it can be both. So you can, if someone can, of course, volunteer and come and do it, that's wonderful. If they have, someone has come forward saying, I've got an idea for the course, and they want to come and do that advisor, then they will be paid. You'll be paid for that time, because then, and I suppose it depends on each location will have their own version of administrative. It's very hard to guess how their admin's going to work and how they'll pay. I would hope that a lot of it might be previous students, and this refers to what I was saying about not coming there and languishing. The previous students who might be on a pension and don't want to get paid, because then you will get on money cut, don't we, so anything, might want to come in and just be an advisor on a co-production thing. So that's how they're using what they've learned and their skill, and they're involved in the community, and they can come at the end and evaluate. That gives them something, and then if they actually want to keep doing that, want to get paid, they can get paid. So it's going to be what you make it. You ask for what you want, and you should be given what you want.
So the funding's all government funding to start off with, but then I presume NDIS obviously is putting a lot of funding into systems like.
Yeah, so we look. The only thing that we're adamant on that this has to be provided free. We just didn't want to. It's not inclusive. If you have recovery college and it's going to cost you $272 to come from.
No, but I'm looking at it more from, like you're talking about, empowering a person to make choice. And if a person's got funds that they want to choose to use at the college, that improves their life in this way.
Yeah.
That to me seems like a win-win, because they're getting the course and you're getting funding to help the college to keep going through.
So you can come and you can put in what you want to put in, and you can get out what you want to get out, as long as it is in a co-environment. And everyone's putting in something and everyone's getting out something.
So how do you get into a course? Is there going to be referral?
Oh, no, don't talk about referral.
Yeah, that's medical model.
This is not for you. I guess that's a good question to end
Walk
on,
in the
because
door.
what we don't want is for people to confuse this with an HSP. It's like, I've been referred to recovery college, and you're never going to be referred to recovery. So you might be verbally, you might have a social worker, you should go to recovery college, here's a number, a verbal, like, you let people know what's out there. They might never heard of it. There might be a new immigrant, never heard of it. Oh, here's a number, you should go to recovery college. No, we just don't want any clinical referrals. We just don't want that to be a medical thing. Because again, that's paternalistic, and it's, I'm an expert and I'm prescribing for you to go and learn properly about your that's not what we, that's not empowering.
So how will they be marketed?
How will you recruit?
Yeah, so one of my personal comments on recovery college, and actually years back when I met Alana Clovis at Curtin, when she came to have a little whisper about the idea before 2018, I said, can we not do this thing where we start doing something really great and are looking like we're going to do a great job, and then completely fall flat on marketing, and then we've got this great thing and no one knows about it? Because there's actually been some great stuff in WA. I was speaking to people, they go, oh, did we have that? And I'm like, yeah, everybody knows that's a thing. So I mean, how much they're going to allocate for specific advertising in each location, it's going to be up to who's tenure, which one of the consortiums doing that. That's all out of the panel's control. I mean, our job's done, we're out, we just get emails around, oh, what's going on with it? So I would, look, I really hope they promote, and it is minuted in the minutes of the meetings that you've got to really spread the word, because things just die in the bum, don't they, when they're great and no one knows, because this is about community involvement, and it's not going to work if the community is not involved, and having to get involved, it doesn't know.
So when you have a course and it's up and running, sort of touching on the last issue, how do you recruit, and what happens if you've got people, one person that wants to do spiritual course, the other one wants to do something else? How do you run the courses with maybe only one person in it, or is it? I just can't envisage what you mean.
Well, that comes down to this community-facing criteria. So there would have to be a lot of consultation with that local community and as much diverse consultation. So when they sort of start up, advertise, they'll probably, and I presume, run an information session. Right, we're here, this is our local one in Wheatbelt, in whatever town. Come and they'll have a bit of a chat, and then they're probably going to put out some more of a involved consultation process, because there's no point in them starting writing courses that everybody wants in a Wheatbelt, you know. So it can't happen unless they know that that's what the community wants. Because some people come up to me and said, oh, what are the courses? I'm like, I don't know, it's whatever you want it to be. And they're like, oh, that just sounds silly. Oh, you know, there's no planning. I'm like, no, that's the dirty one. What happens in Mandurah, their courses, like, completely different to what's going on in Wanneroo. Or, you know, if there's more Indigenous people in one section, they're not going to want stuff that somebody else does, and we don't want some of their stuff. Well, I love all that. Well, you should. That's the whole thing. It's like I love all that spiritual health and the country and the connection, and I think that if our services actually did a lot more Indigenous health for people who are non-Indigenous, I think that would be myself. So I'm hoping that. But what I'm saying is, what one community wants, they're just not interested in what another community wants. So basically, you'll just get what you turn up to a consultation and say, well, there's enough of us want this. They'll look at the data going, half the community want this, half the community want that, quarter want this, quarter want that. We're going to start with 5 courses. We've got money for 5 courses. These are the 5, and we'll just keep consulting. And then the courses will just kind of wax and change over time. Like sometimes you might have a great course in spirituality, and then someone will come and combine it with pottery for mindfulness or something. Like they'll just come with this great idea and go, oh, I did a great spirituality course 3 years ago, and I do pottery, but I've created my own thing called mindful pottery, and I think I've got enough expertise to come and teach it. Yes. Then that's what you do. Then. So it's as long as you've got enough people. Obviously, if you do a consultation process and there's only 4 people in your whole community who want to do it, you might have to spend a few years promoting that idea. But you know, it's whatever you make.
Answers my question.
Yeah. And so I want it to be.
Sorry for interrupting, Phoebe. So for everybody who wants to have a break,